Welcome back in CBS Sports Radio, 2:38 a.m. Eastern Time, talking NCAA scandal. Arizona loses to Oregon last night, but it's much more than the result of that game, as Sean Miller did not coach in it, but DeAndre Ayton did play. So let's head out to someone who was covering the game last night from the Arizona Daily Star. He covers the Arizona basketball team, and that's Bruce Pascoe, who joins us right now on CBS Sports Radio. You can follow him on Twitter at Bruce Pascoe, and he's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Bruce, it's Zach Gelb. Appreciate the time, and how are you?
Oh, busy. It's been a crazy couple days, as you can imagine, but, that's the way it goes sometimes.
In this next step for Sean Miller, obviously did not coach in the game last night. We don't know what his future does entail at Arizona. What do you think the next step is, and how do you think Arizona decides on this?
I'm guessing it's probably going to be at least somewhat more permanent decision. Probably their next game is Thursday. I'm guessing probably Tuesday or Wednesday maybe, because there's some legal issues going on, and I know Miller's side has got some things. But my guess is that there'll probably be like an indefinite suspension of him until more's come out, because all they said tonight was basically that he's out and Lorenzo Romar was going to take his place. And I think the question is we just don't know how long the whole legal thing can go on. And, at the same time, Sean Miller says he's confident he'll be vindicated, which obviously a lot of people say in that situation that maybe that's going to lead to a settlement. But it certainly seems unlikely that he would come back this season and probably after that, just because it'd just be really, quite a kind of a circus around the team if that were to happen, So I think they'll probably try and put a little more permanence to it. It's just a question of whether they're going to go forward in the postseason, what's DeAndre Ayton's status going to be, things like that. And it's really a lot of it's up in the air right now.
A lot of questions that still are going to be left unanswered for a while, like we're talking about. Now, in Sean Miller's statement today, he said that he believes it's the best interest of the team that he did not coach the game from last night. But then, like you were saying, he believes he'll be vindicated. Do you believe maybe he actually thought down deep that he should have been coaching last night, and the university just said, hey, that's not happening?
Yeah, I think that's possible. I really do. I mean, he's like that. He's really determined and focused, and he's been saying all the way along that he just wants to coach this team. And I've kind of got the feeling that, he knew a lot of things might happen that could blow up or whatever, but he was really focused on coaching the team. He's got a really good team. It's got, they had a chance to clinch the Pac-12 tonight, or at least a share of it, and they didn't. So I think he felt. I mean, all we know for sure is they say he agreed between him and the school, but it wouldn't surprise me if the school said, hey, you got to sit out until we know more here, or something along those lines. And that's probably what happened, because he even went through, I went to their hotel last night. They actually even went through their, like a 10 p.m. film session, and he was there, so talking to him and preparing as if nothing was going on. And then overnight, they decided that he was out, at least for the time being.
Also in the Yahoo report, there was the conversation about Markelle Fultz allegedly taking a $10,000 bribe. Now, I don't know what Lorenzo Romar knew or did not know about that. Do you have a problem that they elected for last night to put Romar in as the head coach in that spot?
Right. Well, I think, Romar asked him about that, actually. He said he didn't know anything about it until he read about it in the Yahoo report. I think the difference is that it's possible, because nothing else is known, it's possible. All we saw was the sheet there where they listed Markelle Fultz getting $10,000, and that there was no other tie in that saying Romar knew about it or had anything to do with it. So that's possible. Whereas the difference with Miller, of course, is that he allegedly was on a wiretap discussing paying DeAndre Ayton, six figures. So that's a little more direct there. So I don't know, but it is interesting that there's that. One of their other assistants, Mark Phelps, was suspended for 2 games earlier this year for breaking the NCAA rule himself. So they literally have no other coach on staff. They have who hasn't been, tied into anything of this nature right now. It's really, kind of a bizarre situation.
Bruce Pascoe joins us right now on CBS Sports Radio, covers the Arizona Wildcats for the Arizona Daily Star. You can follow him on Twitter at Bruce Pascoe. Describe that scene for me tonight before the game and then also after the game when you got a chance to talk to some players and coaches.
Well, before the game, it was pretty predictable. I think the Oregon students had a lot of fun with it, with the FBI signs. There were checks written out to Ayton. They were waving. There was a guy walking around with a sport coat saying FBI on it, and things like that. And but if anything, it appeared to energize Ayton. He really played terrific, actually, tonight. It was probably one of his best, if not his best, game of the whole season. He just kind of fell a little flat in overtime when they lost. So there was that, and then after the game, they control things. Even on a normal night, Arizona's very controlling in post-game, and they only brought out Parker Jackson-Cartwright, their point guard, and Romar. So there wasn't much there. Nobody could talk to Ayton. Nobody could even see Ayton. But Ayton's family apparently put out a statement saying they didn't know anything, and they're upset that he was dragged into this blah, blah, blah. So I'm sure it really was a motivation thing for him. And, all we got out of Parker Jackson-Cartwright and Romar was that Ayton, handled it well, was really determined and doing all the right things, blah, blah, blah. But we don't, it's hard to get any more down to the ground kind of feeling about what's really going on because the way it was so limited tonight.
From an outsider's perspective, you would have thought going into this that Arizona would send the same message and they would be on the same page. Sean Miller did not coach tonight. DeAndre Ayton did play. Do you have a problem with them not having Sean Miller coach and then DeAndre Ayton playing in the game from last night?
Well, I mean, personally, I think it's hard to say. I don't know. I kind of thought that's the way it would go because, again, Miller was named in that discussing this. But with Ayton, there was nothing so far we know about did he actually get the money, what happened. And I'm sure that may come out later and may eventually lead to him being suspended. It's very possible. But I think, they had, 24 hours to look at this, and Ayton's denying it. So what could they do? I don't think they could. Some schools may have set him out. I mean, USC certainly did that with DeAnthony Melton when he was accused of things, and there were some, nothing was proven yet. But I think Arizona's decided, that there's nothing there that they could prove right away, so they decided to go for it. And frankly, at this point, they're looking at their whole entire season possibly being vacated if this turns into an NCAA violation. So, I guess they figure, I guess maybe that's just somewhere in the back of somebody's mind saying, well, who knows what's going to happen. And, being as they said that Ayton's denying it and they don't know otherwise, I think they just decided to go ahead and do it and let him play.
Bruce Pascoe with us right now on CBS Sports Radio. The Sean Miller contract with the clause allegedly in the contract of he gets paid more if he gets fired with cause than without cause, $10.3 million to $5.15 million. Can you explain that to me? Because that's so bizarre, and it gives me the impression that Sean Miller maybe had a little bit of a guilty conscience if that's getting put in his contract.
It does make you wonder that. It's funny because, I wasn't, there's been so many things going on that I haven't been able to go over his contract with kind of a fine-tooth deal. There's so many other things I've had to worry about in recruiting and, what's going on with this particular team. But, there is that, and it does make you wonder. I do know that at least at the time when his contract was last renegotiated a couple years ago, that he was at or maybe even slightly below market level for somebody of his achievements, and so maybe he had some leverage in there to because he wasn't to negotiate the terms if anything like that came up. And it does make you wonder. I don't know if that's the case or not, but certainly raises the question. You're right.
Yeah, I've been talking about this from yesterday then into today. And when we get in the conversation of what a head coach knows and what he doesn't know, if an assistant coach is partaking in these actions, I have a hard time believing the head coach does not know. If a player's just meeting with an agent for lunch, I don't know how the coach necessarily is going to know that an agent paid for a meal or not. In this case with Sean Miller, a lot of people, when this report originally came back out 5-6 months ago, were defending Sean Miller, Jay Billis and Dick Vitale. Give me a little bit more insight on Sean Miller since you're closer to the situation.
Right. I was actually surprised that the university, commentary besides that, just inside the university, they really threw their weight behind Miller and said, He's run things the right way, fostering compliance, blah blah blah, and I think the president of the university did say something like, at this time, we see no reason not to let him coach the team. So that was their little hook there or whatever. But it was a little interesting to see that they were that supportive of him at a time when they could have just said, we don't know much, but Sean Miller's going to coach the team until we can find out more. But they were a lot more strong about him, and then this came about. I think the interesting part of that, though, is that Arizona has a new AD and a new president. Both of them just came in within the last 8, 12, 10 months. So neither one of them knew Miller very well, weren't around for any of this that may have happened, and I think they decided to go that direction. When it first came out on September 26th, university didn't say anything for I think 3 days, and then they put out a couple statements about the assistant who was arrested, and then a week later had a press conference, and Miller had a press conference, and so it's almost like they shut everything down for about a few days, did their own investigation within, and just asked Miller what what happened, and then decided based on that they were going to support him. And now if this stuff is true, they're going to look a little compromised for doing that.
In the last 48 to 72 hours, we're talking to Bruce Pascoe, who writes for the Arizona Daily Star, covers the Arizona men's basketball team. How would you gauge the reaction from your readers when talking about Sean Miller?
That's interesting. It's hard to tell, and you certainly can, you see stuff on Twitter, and we've had calls and comments and this and that. But, I think even before this happened, I honestly think it was probably 50-50. There was a lot of people who were supporting the team, but they weren't so sure about this whole thing. Everybody knows how Sean Miller has been with Book Richardson, the coach who got arrested, been with him for 11 years, and probably, may have known what was going on. So there was a lot of suspicion, and I don't know, if I had to guess, I'd say it's 80% that are against him at this point, and maybe 20% saying, well, let's see what's happening, and then maybe there's a real small percentage that are still behind him. But there are a lot of people saying, in fact, our columnist Greg Hansen had a column basically yesterday saying Miller can't coach again, can't be out there for Oregon, can't come back. This is beyond the deal, and a lot of people reacted strongly to that. Many were in support, but a lot of people were saying also that, he needs to go through the process before you can fire him. So there's that, but I still think overall certainly more than half the people are pretty down on this and against it.
Bruce, before we let you run, you being so close to this situation, no one's going to wake up after reading what they've read over the last few days and be shocked that this is going on in college basketball. How does the NCAA get this thing fixed, in your opinion?
Wow. Well,
it's a tough one. It's a multi-million-dollar question.
Exactly. Or as you might say, no pun intended, the $100,000 question. Who knows? You do think, as just looking at it in an economic term, you look at the pressure that's going on, and maybe some opening up as far as agents or whatever being able to pay people they want to pay, and nobody having a problem with it. Or you can look at it even bigger. Some people say maybe you need to detach these programs from universities and have a European style where you have club teams, and that's where people go to develop, and they get paid. And there's certainly no easy answer, because certainly if you start paying players, as we all know, a lot of schools can't afford it, especially the schools, they're sponsoring all kinds of other sports that don't make money, and they're paying their basketball players or the football players. And how does anybody do that? So there's really no easy answer here, I don't think. Certainly it would help if they could get the NBA to budge and force guys to stay in school 2 or 3 years, and that might eliminate some of the guys that are one and done or even two and done, because that certainly leads to some of the problem here, where you have agents and shoe companies who know these guys are going to be big time NBA players, and they want to get in with them, allegedly, according to what the feds are finding. And if that's, whereas in football, it's 3-4 years, maybe guys can pan out, maybe not, with a handful of exceptions. But basketball, so there's such a high correlation between stars that are juniors and seniors in high school to guys that are stars or that make the NBA a year or two later, and that's so that money is flowing in there, and if you can eliminate those guys, that certainly would seem to help.
Well, Bruce, I appreciate the insight. I'm up against the break. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you down the road.
Oh, thanks for having me. Okay, take care.
There's Bruce Pascoe joining us from the Arizona Daily Star.